Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers play a great opening night and they win behind a monster game from Anthony Davis. Break it down next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free and never behind paywall, and Locked On Lakers on YouTube. So we can go hang out with over 25,000 excited subscribers to the channel, Andy, because the Lakers, for the first time since the Obama administration, have won a season opener. You got to go back to to October of 2016 was the last time the Lakers won a season opener, but they beat Minnesota 110-103. Plenty of stuff to break down from this game, including obviously a 36.16 rebound, 4 assist, 3 block night from Anthony Davis. But first win for JJ Redick, a nice game from Rui Hachimura, LeBron and Bronny playing together. Lots of stuff that we too much to get to. Probably one show we'll cover more on Thursday. But overall, Andy, it's just nice to get off on the right foot. Like, the Lakers haven't had an opening night win in almost a decade.
Let me put this in perspective, because I did some digging around trying to remember the last time this happened, and that's how I landed on the 2016 October 27th. Your starters for the Lakers in that game: Luol Deng, Timofey Mozgov. This was after the summer of the bag around the NBA that unfortunately infiltrated the Lakers. Julius Randle, Swaggy P, and D'Angelo Russell. The more things change, the more they stay exactly the same. D'Lo running the point. Your leading scorer off the bench for the Lakers was Jordan Clarkson with 25 points. They beat the James Harden Rockets, and it was Brandon Ingram's rookie season. Like, another way of putting this in perspective, because I was talking about this with my daughter after picking her up from school. She was in kindergarten when this win happened that I just described. Girls in 8th grade now. Like, that was way too damn long.
That wasn't a very good team. Just as a side note. But it's important. JJ Redick talked. There's a lot of Redick stuff both going into this game and coming out of it that I think is going to be interesting for Lakers fans. But one of the things that he preached going in was, we are not going to get off to a bad start. Last year, 36 games in, they were 17-19. The 2 years ago, they lost 10 of their first 12, and they spend an entire season, especially in that case, trying to climb out of the hole that they dug for themselves. And it's one game, and I get it, but hey man, 82-0 still on the table. It's one game, but it's one game that they had a winnable game on their home floor against a team that will be quite good, I think, but doesn't know itself yet in the Timberwolves. They went out and they played a good game and they won it. You just stack these things up, and game 1 counts as much as game 48.
Absolutely. And we've talked about before, this Western Conference is going to be too difficult for the Lakers to attempt to pace their way through, even acknowledging LeBron's season 22, age 40 creeping up, whatever concerns that always exist for AD, both of them coming off Team USA. You don't have that luxury in this Western Conference. And, for all the talk about the Lakers and being a championship organization, all that matters is the playoffs. What you do in the regular season establishes a lot of what you may end up doing in the playoffs. And it also reflects, as we've talked about a lot during this preseason, the attention to detail and the focus that has been not just talked about by JJ Redick, but talked about the players and them appreciating. And we'll get to some of the specifics, but just as an example, there's been this emphasis on offensive rebounding, crashing that glass, creating second chance opportunities for the Lakers. They ended up not winning the second chance points battle, which was a little bit surprising when I looked at the stat sheet, but 31-19. But they had 15 offensive rebounds in this game, which was in part led to 72 points in the paint, which is just insane.
Yes.
And also, too, they had more field goal attempts, 95-85 against the Timberwolves, despite getting the line 25 times. And we talked about a lot last year and heading into this year. The Lakers needed to get more shots up, period. Some of that was getting into their offense quicker, not just screwing around so much, but also
lollygagging.
Yeah, a lot of it also was hitting that offensive glass, giving yourself second chance opportunities. And one game in, the Lakers paid attention in class.
It was, and there's a sound bite of Redick in one of the timeouts. He was mic'd up with the TNT broadcast talking about that. Good attention to detail, executing the game plan. AD talked about it after the game. We got what he called an elite game plan. I thought that was interesting. And
do you see Chris Finch before the game? The Timberwolves coach said
it's called the Lakers offense more sophisticated,
more modern,
Yeah.
Ouch. Damn. But yeah, I mean, they
catching sprays, but it was between that and they forced 15 turnovers. Some of it sloppy play, but again, by a Minnesota team that they are learning. It's a very different group
only turn the ball over 7 times themselves.
Yes. So that leads to extra opportunities. And, they were not good from the floor. I mean, the Lakers, overall, they shot 44% from the floor, 5 of 30 from 3-point range. They were obviously, you start doing the math there, you're 37 of 65 from 2, which is robust. But it's not like they had one of these nights where everything was cooking and the ball's falling through the hoop easily and all that kind of stuff. They had to work really hard to, especially in the first half, to earn second opportunities to score, to do all that. They went into the locker room with a pretty substantial lead, a double-digit lead, despite a very low shooting percentage overall. And it was because of those second opportunities or additional opportunities that they created, either through offensive rebounds or forcing turnovers.
JJ Redick had a really succinct summary among many things he said after the game, but he just said they competed all night, talking about the team. And that is also something that Redick has focused on a lot, and something we talked about last year. For all of the focus on Darvin's decisions and things that he would do with the rotations, play calls, stuff like that, this team was often too casual last year. And that's something that is not on Darvin. That's on them. They are ultimately professionals with their own goals. And we talked about how there were times where they lost winnable games, particularly against sometimes bad opponents, through their own lack of urgency. This was a game where they played their asses off from start to finish. It never felt like, even possessions where they did not execute particularly well, it never felt like they took a possession off. And that was a really big deal.
Yeah, it's nice to see them win a game where actually some of the numbers, they're not going to shoot, 50 something. I forget, the percent. I didn't do the exact percentage of the math from 2-point range, but you're just always going to do that all season long or whatever it might be. And they're going to have nights where they shoot, obviously, I hope, better than 5 or 30 from 3. But if they go out, Boston boat raced New York in the first game, of the TNT doubleheader, and that was in part because Boston's really good, and it's also because Boston shot was I think they were at almost 58% from 3 through 3 quarters at incredibly high volume. It was just one of those, it was like a video game night for them. And Boston's really good, but nobody's that good. That will even out. So the Lakers didn't have that. And so when we get back, we'll talk about AD after the break and how he was a catalyst for all this. But it didn't just start and end with Anthony Davis. There was a lot of good stuff up and down the roster, but it was a lot of Anthony Davis. So we'll talk AD next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can enjoy the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So let's say you're watching a game and it feels like you just have a sixth sense for everything that's happening, like every big touchdown pass, every turnover, sack, busted run, whatever. You can confirm your hunches with the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Get started also with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And the NBA season, it is officially upon us. And of course, our friends at FanDuel have options for you as of this recording. Who knows how things change, but latest odds we have: Thunder 3-1 favorites to win the Western Conference. The Wolves, Mavs, and Nuggets all tied at 5-1. And then others down the scale include the Lakers at 19-1. The Warriors 21-1, Pelicans and Kings.
Somebody didn't watch Tuesday's game, but that's
exactly. Get in your bet now before the odds go down. That's FanDuel.com.
we had commented, Andy, throughout the preseason that Anthony Davis looked pretty sharp, playing pretty well. But Andy, those are pretend games. Those games don't count. This one did. And oh my, the numbers themselves are just fun to read. 36 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, 3 blocks, 15 trips to the free throw line. He made 13, a nice little chip. I think you had said you were pretty confident that he would get back to good free throw shooting. Didn't shoot free throws well in the preseason. You felt confident. He justified the love there. But it wasn't just the numbers. This was like the ideal Anthony Davis game if you asked Lakers fans to draw it up and what does it look like? He scores from every level. He's blocking shots, and he is the focus and the dominant player when the team needs him, especially I thought in a stretch in the fourth quarter, Andy.
Yes.
When LeBron wasn't on the floor and AD was like they're running everything through him, and it was awesome. I loved every minute of it.
He actually was the dominant force, I thought, offensively on the floor once LeBron checked back in. I mean, this was a game where it felt like Anthony Davis was the closer. And we've talked about this before, like in terms of Anthony Davis being more of a fourth quarter presence for this team. Some of that is going to be obviously on AD's own assertion level, his own success level, things that he does. But some of it is everybody reconfiguring their minds to not just automatically assume it's going to be LeBron. And look, there will be plenty of times where it does happen with LeBron. But you don't want that to be your automatic assumption, especially when it's important that Anthony Davis really is treated in all ways as the best, most important player on this team, because he is. Yeah. There was an interesting moment, too, after the game. He was doing his post-game with Mike Trudell for Spectrum Sportsnet, and he was asked, AD, about one of his blocks, which was just a vicious stuff of a Rudy Gobert block, dunk attempt. And AD just said DPOY type stuff, Defensive Player of the Year type stuff. And it, not lost on anybody that he did this to the reigning Defensive Player of the Year. The guy who's had it multiple times, AD, never.
He loves playing against former DPOYs as a side note.
But it also speaks to something I love that I've sensed with AD going back to like the Olympics and then a lot of preseason. AD will talk all the time about how he does not care about the individual accolades, but then we'll always remind you that might as well not care because the voters are never going to give it to him anyway, particularly Defensive Player of the Year. They don't appreciate him, whatever. I sense that Anthony Davis is in serious double middle fingers mode, and I love it.
Yeah,
I absolutely love, because he's not a player that is ever going to get selfish with an agenda. Like, that's just not how AD is wired. Double middle fingers AD just means beast mode AD, and I love it. A nastier, edgier AD.
If we're ESPN to come out tomorrow with another NBA rank that dropped AD into the 20s or something, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be mad at that. I kind of hope they do. It's just like, as I think there is certainly a possibility that the little slights are stacking up in a way. And he's also, he's talked about the Olympic experience and how it's helped him, and he is fit and he's, dialed in and all this other stuff in ways that maybe he hasn't been in previous seasons, or it's just different or whatever it might be. But your point about other guys rewiring a little bit in fourth quarters, I think that's true. But I also think sometimes it's, if the case is made so clearly, there's nothing to rewire. It's just like, all right, let's get out of the way. And, they're running the offense and they're doing other stuff. And I thought, the Rui Hachimura had a really nice game.
Talk about somebody who got the memo about the rebounds. He only had 5, but he was active in that area all the time.
Austin Reeves had 9 rebounds. And it's not, I mean, obviously Hachimura needs to be a better rebounder than he has been, at that position, especially in his size, but it's not one player every night. I mean, aside from, say, like AD, who's going to get his every single game, it's activity, it's boxing guys out, it's making the right cut. It's not letting somebody behind you on an offensive board or whatever it might be. And overall, I thought they were really good with this. But Rui was active. He was, I think, attentive to rebounding. He moved well offensively. Found open spaces for catch and shoot opportunities and all this. So he looked good. Reeves was able to contribute despite not making a 3-pointer. 9 rebounds, 4 assists. You look at Jackson Hayes off the bench.
Jackson Hayes was great in this game. Great.
Later in the week, I want to talk a little bit about guys like Hayes and what the measurement of success looks like with somebody like him. D'Lo also struggled with his shot, but had a nice fourth quarter with some timely passes and a late bucket that was important. It's just like there was a lot. It was just a lot. It was a team win, obviously driven by Anthony Davis, but a team win that should give them a lot of confidence, especially, Andy, considering that they really haven't been with their offense or defense for particularly long.
And it was also a game too where, LeBron was fine. Like, he was not bad in this game. He was not great in this game. And, we'll get to the LeBron Bronny moment after the next break. I would not be surprised at all, nor would I even blame him if that was something that was preoccupying him, at least in the first half, because it was pretty telegraphed this was going to happen. Like, once
they knew it was right. I mean, they basically said it was going to happen. So.
Sure, but I'm just saying, like, once before they even acknowledged it was going to happen, once the news broke that the Griffies, Ken and Junior and Senior, were going to be in the audience, the cat's kind of out of the bag at that point. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if LeBron had been, human nature, a bit preoccupied by that. But the reason I bring up this part of it is just, this was a game where they did not need LeBron to turn it on. And that's good, because there are going to be plenty of times where they do need it, and he will. But this was not one of those nights.
No, it's they had 5 guys in double figures, D'Lo a point short of that. And again, I'm not saying this team is going to be 41, 42, 43% from 3-point range, but they are going to be, whether they take 30 like they did on Tuesday in the opener and make 5. They took 19 in the first half, 11 in the second. So it's not like they just kept throwing the ball up at the rim with no success. but like they're not. D'Angelo Russell's not going to shoot 1 of 7 most nights, and LeBron was 1 for 4, and Rui was 1 for 4, and Reeves was 0 for 5. Even if you think these guys are overrated and they shouldn't shoot that many threes, 30% in this game, they win this game by 20 points. It's not even close. Like, they were awful from the perimeter. And so that should give them, I actually think, a lot of confidence to go into the Phoenix game on Friday and continue to do this, continue to build the habit of, we are going to be a team that creates good 3-point opportunities and takes them. They're not all going to be perfect, and some are going to look a little forced because sometimes they are to some degree. But I mean, some fans, I guess, could look at them and be like, look, they only shot 30, they were terrible, and they won it, and do that over and over again. I look at it the opposite way. It's like, this is great. Like, go keep doing it.
Here's the thing.
It's going to take some time to build the muscle memory offensively to add an extra 8 thing. And you have to be able to work through the times when the ball isn't going to go in, because you can't keep up in the modern NBA taking 33 pointers a game. You just can't.
Here's the thing about tonight, and then we'll get to the break and talk about LeBron and Bronny. They had to do a lot of battling tonight. They had to work through periods where the offense wasn't working. They always looked tonight like they were having fun. Like, their energy level tonight.
Yeah, and great.
Like the vibe that you could even get, you and I were not in the building, but the vibe you could get from the TNT feed felt extremely just positive in that type of mentality.
So obviously Bron and Bronny had their moments. Man alive, am I happy this is over with. Not because I'm angry with either Bron or Bronny. I'm just sort of tired of the discourse. We'll talk about it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. My daughter is 13. We have bonded a lot over the years through music. This year in particular, it's been Frank Ocean, who she is really obsessed with. He hasn't put out an album in about 8 years. By the way, the last time he had put out an album was the last time the Lakers had won a season opener. Like, it had really been that long.
Maybe that's just when he does it. Is like, if the Lakers win, I will put out.
You know what? That means Frank Ocean's going to have a new album coming out and a tour. And I promised my daughter, if Frank Ocean goes on tour, I will get us tickets, even though they're not going to be easy to get, except for someone like me using Game Time, because the process just becomes easier. Like, they have features Game Time picks, filters out all the confusing verbiage, and just shows you incredible deals on great seats, saves you time. They offer panoramic seat views before you buy, so you know exactly what the view to the stage is going to be. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off.
So, what was it, about 5 minutes left in the second quarter, Andy, give or take? LeBron and Bronny both on the bench they were on the bench at the same time. They come into the game together and played, it was about 3 minutes, give or take. The historic moment is in the books. I thought it was pretty cool. Lakers fans, this is like one of the most, to me, I get why to other people it isn't. It's like one of the most weirdly polarizing things that have happened in with the team, that has, in my opinion, relatively little impact on anything from a wins and losses standpoint.
Well, because they won. As we talked about before, heading into this, had the Lakers not won this game, particularly if it was a close loss, given that the moments that LeBron and Bronny were on the court were frankly not productive in terms of.
It was a -5 in 3 minutes.
Let me rephrase.
Bronny wasn't The Lakers were a -5 in those 3 minutes. I'm not going to assign all of it to Bronny.
No,
But
I'm not
yes,
assigning. I mean,
you aren't, but I mean,
sure, right. But those moments were -5 in part because they very clearly had no organic reason to be playing with Bronny. And it showed while they were out on the court. They looked at times like they were playing either 4-on-5 offensively, or they weren't quite sure what they were supposed to be doing. And I want to make this clear. I am not saying this to complain about it. I'm saying this to be honest about it. And had the Lakers lost this game, I can promise you, whether it is truly an accurate breakdown of where the loss ultimately hinged, people would be pointing to those 3 to 4 minutes of Bronny and Braun on the court as the Lakers not being serious.
Right.
That was going to happen if they lost.
But that's kind of part of what I'm talking about. I think, this is Bronny, and we'll get back to the, sort of the history of it. And I think the sort of the positive.
The history is cool.
Moment of it in a second here. But like Bronny, the question of Bronny as a second round pick, as a player who might play 3 minutes in the season opener. And I am telling you, not you, Andy, but like you listening, you are not going to see Bronny in a non-blowout game more than twice between now and the end of the season. And that is only if lots of guys get hurt.
Yep.
It's just not going to happen. And I know people want to use this as sort of an avatar for everything that they either like or dislike about LeBron, like or dislike about the front office and all these other things. It is an entry point into talking about the lack of seriousness of the team. But like, I'll tell you, like Bronny James is not the worst player on this roster. Maxwell Lewis is.
I don't disagree, but Maxwell Lewis would not have been put on the floor.
Of course not. But there is a tendency, like it's 3 minutes in a game, in an important game with the Lakers. Like they lost a big lead in the second half. I actually texted you with the joke they should put Bronny back in, try to stem the tide. Like, they lost a big lead in the second half too. A 3-minute sequence was going to be given. I'm not saying I agree with you. It was going to happen, but a 3-minute sequence. Not only were they going to talk about people who are upset at the franchise or upset at LeBron, going to talk about it tonight, Andy. We were going to be reminded in November, in December, in late January, in March. I wouldn't be in this situation if they hadn't give that, when 1,000 other things have happened between that. And that's what I mean when I say it's just sort of overwrought and people are really using Bronny as an entry point to talk about bigger criticisms, some of which are completely valid about the team. And to me, what I found frustrating about that is like, it's a cool thing to do. It's the opening game of the season. You have a player in LeBron James who I think has sort of earned legacy-wise maybe a little bit of this sort of thing. And I think it's a cool moment for the league, and it's all this other stuff. And LeBron James is not the first person to have a personal thing kind of indulged.
No, but he is. I'm willing to bet the first person to have it indulged in this way.
Well,
like, it's okay to be honest about this,
of course. But I'm not.
But I feel like there's a certain degree, like.
It's not. I'm not calling anything about this organic.
No, but it's beyond the organic fact. I'm not talking about just the organic factor. I'm talking about the execution of it. Like J.R. Smith's brother was on the Knicks for like a season or something like that. Like, Goran Dragic's
because
brother
brothers
Zoran
have
was in the
played together,
but they didn't
and
get
fathers
put,
and sons have
but
not.
they did not get put into games
Right.
under
Because
unusual
there was nobody
non-organic
gave a
circumstances.
bleep if J.R. Smith and his brother played together. It is, of course, it is inorganic. And they did it this way.
But it could have been
because
consequential, and that
it
has to
could
at least
have
be
been.
acknowledged.
It, of course,
And I'm not even complaining that it happened. I'm
It
just saying
could
we
have
can
been
talk about it
consequential.
honestly.
It could have been consequential, and even in the consequences, the 3 minutes or whatever would have been focused on at the expense of 3 other minutes or 10 other minutes, 10 other things, and you could say this contributed to it because of course it did, the moments, and it would have been overwrought. But the point is, my point is, maybe not the point, my point is, if you're going to have this situation on your team where you're going to invest in Bronny James, and you either declare from the beginning he's not going to appear on the floor with his dad until the end of the year, so stop asking. It's not going to happen. We are not going to put him in the game until here, and you can do it that way.
Which is something the Lakers as an organization would not do in a
There was a
million years.
0% chance that was going to happen.
Right.
And I mean, and I don't think the Lakers, I think, wanted a moment like this, and I think LeBron wanted it, wanted to do, and again, I think it is okay to indulge a player like that, in a small way, in a short moment. They didn't put him back on the floor. He didn't take a second half shift.
Yeah.
And now it's done.
Yes.
And Bronny can go play in the G League,
which is what's best for Bronny.
And everyone can let him go develop. And I'm not going to say ignore him, because he's going to have more attention to him than certainly most G League players do. But we are not going to be subjected to daily reports on Bronny. We're not going to be watching every G League game and breaking all this stuff down. And now the development process can happen. And it's just, it could have had some consequence. Absolutely, of course.
Well, but it's also, it's really important, but we don't have to beat this to death, because ultimately it was a cool moment, but it is extremely important that they won this game and that it didn't hurt any winning, because otherwise the moment goes from, however, I mean, forget whatever sentiment LeBron and Bronny and the James family feel about this, which is their own to enjoy, but whatever sentiment fans would feel about it goes straight the hell out the window if they
I
lose.
am real happy that they won.
Don't get me wrong. I'm
happy for them that they won.
Like, that's my larger point with all this. It's not in talking about all of this from a almost neutral lens with it. It's not because I don't think the moment is cool. I can totally appreciate it for LeBron and Bronny and the family and for the organization, all of that stuff. I'm just saying the context of it completely flips in a really bad way if they don't win.
But they did. So
sure, absolutely. But nobody knows that in the moment when they're commenting on it.
Of course not. But that's why you do it. That's why you
game.
do it with it. They I think they were going to try to get it in regardless.
Sure.
But they had the benefit of being able to do it with a pretty large lead and an entire second half of basketball to play to regain the 5 points that they may have lost. And
I just know how things would have turned out. So
I'm
glad
I get it, but that's kind of my point, is like, and why I'm glad that this is done, because
so am I.
I don't think a lot of I don't like having these discussions that are not really about Bronny, that are really about the Lakers, that are often really about the Lakers.
No, I actually get a sense,
or whatever.
I get a sense, like a very strong sense, most fans are rooting for Bronny. Like, whatever backlash is little to nothing to actually do with Bronny himself. It's all about LeBron or the Lakers.
He is a conduit for frustration with the front office in ways that I just don't. I mean, I don't And I just, I'm happy for them. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I think it's okay to do this stuff. It's best to do it now and be done with it. But even for me, like I hope he goes down and plays well now. And the Lakers, I wish maybe they'd done it the other way, where they say he'll appear in a game when he appears in a game, but it's probably not going to be in the first couple, because we'll see. But it's just not going to work. And It also, you say he's not going to appear. What about now? What about now?
Exactly.
What about now?
It's pull the Band-Aid off. You don't make teammates have to talk about it anymore. Like, it just gets done. And again, it happened in a win, so it can be perfect in its own right. And that's great, because if anybody has earned something like this, it is LeBron.
Right.
But the ramifications could have been the ramifications. Glad they did not experience it.
Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 25,000 subscribers to the channel, and plenty from this game, including JJ Redick's criticism of the basketballs. Actually, a pretty apt criticism, which we will get into on Thursday. It is a reflection of the attention to detail that we've been hearing so much about. Make another Locked On podcast your second listen of every day. Try that Locked On NBA podcast as everybody's getting back in the swing of the regular season. Lakers are undefeated for the first time in a long time after a season opener. And we'll get everybody ready for Friday's game against the Suns. See everyone tomorrow.